Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
The Kinks played a show organized by John Wayne Gacy. It's true. Our guest is Andrew Craneman. He's the author of the Rock and Roll Almanac. We've got that story and a whole lot more coming up next.
We're totally booked.
Rock and roll!
Well, I think I'll leave you to your reading.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Rock and roller!
We are totally booked.
Welcome back to Booked on Rock. I'm Eric Senich. This episode's guest is Andrew Craneman. He's the author of the fantastic new book titled The Rock and Roll Almanac, a day-by-day journey through 70 years of legendary music history. Welcome to the podcast, Andrew.
Thank you, sir. I'm delighted to be here.
Look where you are. You look very relaxed. What are you on vacation?
It's not a vacation. I'm at a friend's summer cabin here in the Finnish archipelago, but I hope I look relaxed. We just arrived like 30 minutes ago, and there's no electricity. And I was hoping there should be a table here, something that I can put my stuff on. And now I'm sitting on a little stool, and the computer is on a keg or something. So
Okay.
It's really nice that it comes to you as a relaxed.
So before we get into some of the bands and the artists and the albums and songs in the book, tell us about the book. This is chronological. It's a day by day. It goes back 70 years, and you have singles of the day, album of the day. So tell us how it's all set up.
Many of the music history books are specific on one band or one setting or one era or something. I think this is the rock and roll Bible, if you want to say it. It has a single of the day. Every day some single was released. Every day an album was released. And I did have to pick some, there was good albums, there were good singles, but these are, in my opinion, the most important ones for that day. And it's funny because when I was searching for the data and writing the manuscript, I just stumbled on the fact that it is actually 70 years of rock, the seventh decade of rock, because I think in my books, it was 1955, Bill Haley and his Comets, Rock Around the Clock, Chuck Berry, Little Richard. I think that's when the rock and roll became mainstream, and it all started. So that's why the 70 years of rock.
How did the idea come up? You said it was a night out with your bandmates. You're a musician, so we'll go back to 2008.
Yeah, December 11th, 2008, and it was. We were with my bandmates. We were drinking beer. I stumbled on the fact that it was the 10th anniversary of the death of James Lynn Strait, who was a frontman of a band, new metal band, Snot. And I was listening to the band. I'm a huge metalhead, and so I burned a CD as one did back in the day, took it with me. We were listening to it with the guys. It's a great album, the only one that they have. And we were thinking about the big what ifs. What if James Lynn Strait was still alive? How would the band be now? And then it occurred to me that there should be, every day has a story. Someone has born, someone has died. A new album came. And, the golden age of rock and roll, when the rock and roll kings and queens had too much money, too much time, and too many drugs on their hands, they made some peculiar stuff. So it kind of, I think it was 10 years ago that I thought that, okay, perhaps I'll make an app. Everybody was making apps then, but I'm really, really thankful that I didn't do it, because we are so screen oriented these days. So I think something that you can have in your hands, perhaps give as a gift to someone, it means much more to me than just, an app.
And books have far outlasted the changes in technology. I was talking about this recently with a guest. The books are really the only thing nowadays where you still can't beat the value of a book in your hands. Well, this book particularly, you would like to have rather than an app, because this is a conversation piece. This is something you can have when your family, friends are over. Pick it up, look through it, start chatting. You can't do that with an app that easily unless somebody, everybody's got their phones out, but you know what I mean. This is right there in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Which is what I love. What are the sources that you went? Because like January 1st, one of the entries is January 1st, 1968, the Gollywogs, a Berkeley, California swamp rock band formerly known as the Blue Velvets, rebranded as Creedence Clearwater Revival. Stuff like that. What were the sources, and how long did it take to compile all of these for the book?
Well, that's another thing that I'm happy that I did it in the last year that I did, because 10 years ago I would have had to move to a library, because now everything is online. You can find all the stuff. So I think I had 10 or 15 or 20 different sites that I was just, cross-checking, searching. I started with the date, put everything that I considered rock and roll, put under that date, every birth, every death. And then at some point, this is a better story. I have to put this, had to make room for better stories. But, it's a day by day cross-checking from different websites. And hopefully it's all true, because there's rock and roll lore. You never know what is actually true and what is not.
Sure. We mentioned this book goes back 70 years. Was the very earliest entry Rock Around the Clock?
The earliest entries are, of course, they are the birthdays. There's Link Ray, who is born in 1929, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, 1932, Elvis Presley, and Jerry Lee Lewis were born in 35.
Okay.
Buddy Holly in 36.
Yeah, so if you go with dates of birth, then you're going to go all the way back.
Yeah, and the earliest is Link Ray, I think, in 1929, if I'm correct. But the first ones are 1951 that are, truly the stories.
Like an event, yeah.
It's 11th of July, if you want to look it up. It's 1951. Rock and roll gets its name, sort of. There's a Cleveland DJ who launches his Moondog House Rock and Roll Party on WJW radio, and he's one of the first who popularized the phrase rock and roll.
Know him very well. Alan Freed, being a longtime radio guy, he's the guy we all salute. He's the guy who he really started it all off. He used to have concerts he would put together, and they were considered the first rock and roll concerts, which the first one was in Cleveland, which is why the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Cleveland. That's the whole connection to why that's in Cleveland. All right.
And the second one from 1951 is the 18-year-old Richard Penniman, already performing as Little Richard, steps into the studio for the first time, recording his early tracks. So, and it goes from there. There's one that I still wanted to mention here. It's 1945. A 10-year-old Elvis Presley takes the stage for the first time at a talent contest. He didn't win, but, I think.
So for those watching a video, that's how it's set up. So at the top of each page, you got the single released on that day and the album released on that day, which is cool. So that gets it started, and then you get into some of the entries as you go through. So that's really cool. Really cool. In the foreword, you talk about how you knew you'd enjoy writing the book, but it turned out to be so much more than you expected. And this is what you write in the book. Quote, "You truly can't underestimate the ingenuity of people with too much money, too much time, and too many drugs. What are some of the stories that for you really stand out?" Going back to the early part of the book, like January 4th, 1970, The Who's Keith Moon accidentally runs over and kills his chauffeur while trying to flee a fight with skinheads at a pub. That's a wild one. What are some of the ones that really stand out to you?
Well, I think there's so many. If I haven't miscalculated, there's 2,751 of these anecdotes in the book.
And I expect you to know every single one. We're going to go through each and every one.
Of course.
We're going to be here all weekend.
A long show and a long edit for you afterwards.
Part one of 100 episodes.
So there's no shortage of wild rock moments in history, but I think one of the craziest was when Kiss donated vials of their own blood to be mixed with ink to be printed on a Marvel comic book. And
there's some funny moments. There's some cool. Well, we're going to talk about the John Wayne Gacy one with the Kinks is insane. A serial killer promotes a Kinks concert, which we'll get to in a bit. Teaser.
And two that stand out the most was when the it's April 8th, the organizers for 2012 London Olympic Games, they reached out to the Who's management asking if Keith Moon could be available to perform.
I remember that story.
How can
you be that clueless?
Yeah.
You can't Google the current Who lineup.
And it was the management said that he died as he wrote, "I hope I die before I get old." He really did that.
How do you not get offended by that? Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey, like, excuse me, but he's been dead for the last however many years. I don't know, 30 years.
Yeah, I think it was 78 when he died. So the next that I thought was funny, everybody knows the story about Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off the bat. But in 2019, Ozzy Osbourne embraces his own legacy by releasing an official plush bat with a detachable head.
I love it.
They made fun for him. You can buy a doll, a plush toy. So,
well, Kiss has some great ones. Is the Kiss casket in there in the book?
I don't remember.
Yeah, the Kiss cat. I mean, that Kiss has some great ones. Kiss is, they are the ultimate when it came to promotion. Well, we're in the month of June now. So since we're in the month of June, let's run through some of the entries from this month. I plucked out some of my favorites here throughout the book. On the day I was born, actually, June 2nd, 1972, Pink Floyd released Obscured by Clouds. Their 7th studio album comes together in under 2 weeks while the band is in Paris. A couple of cool Stones events. Charlie Watts, born June 2nd, 1941. I always knew that because every time it's my birthday, I'm like, yeah, me and Charlie. They also made their US TV debut on June 2nd, 1964. Fresh off the plane for their first ever US tour, they sit down for an interview on the Les Crane Show. When asked if they're thrilled about their American TV debut, Keith Richards delivers a dry, classic Richards response. Yeah, it knocks me out. There's June 2nd. How about Springsteen, released Born in the USA, June 4th, 1984? Do you have an all-time favorite band or artist?
I really cannot say one. It depends on the day. Today, it's something. Tomorrow, it's something more. But you did ask me before if I had the best
top 5 greatest bands or artists of all time.
I have. Yeah. I have to think about it. And I have been giving it some thought. It's that's the kind of question that starts fights and ends friendships. But if I had to name just the 5 greatest bands, I would go with the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Queen, and Nirvana. And the third, with the Beatles, if some of the kids listening now, youngsters, I'm in my early 40s, but I don't think I knew how much good music Beatles did. I think Obladi and Oblada turned me off the path of really recognizing the Beatles, but I have been listening to them quite much lately.
Amazing body of work.
Yeah, and they did so many kinds of music and had so much fun. And if you think about the Walrus, it's just one big fu to the music critics. You'll find this thing again in the book. And the Rolling Stones, because they are still performing live.
Amazing.
How old are these guys? It's
80.
I don't know.
They're around 80. And Charlie Watts would have been in his mid to late 80s.
Yeah. That's amazing. Of course, Led Zeppelin, what they did, what kind of sounds and different kinds of things they brought to it. And I think Queen is there because of Freddie Mercury. Of course, they made awesome music, but his iconic vocals made the band, I think, what it is.
Now, there are 2 different types of lists you could make. There's one, what's your 5 favorite bands, or this is really an objective. Top 5 greatest bands and artists of all time. It could change if you're talking about your personal favorites.
Yeah, if you ask me tomorrow, there might be Foo Fighters, Bruce Springsteen, ZZ Top.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard.
But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah, so you talked about Queen and Freddie Mercury. Next would be
Nirvana.
Nirvana.
Yeah. Because what they started, I think they kicked the grunge from the ground, and it was Nirvana mania, like it was Beatlemania back in the 60s and 70s.
Last shift-changing rock and roll band. Some would say maybe the last great rock and roll band.
Yeah,
It's
perhaps.
debatable. So for me, I guess top 5 greatest bands. Got to go with the Beatles 1. I got to go with Zeppelin 2. Stones 3. I say Pink Floyd 4. The 5 spot is tough. I'm going to go with Grateful Dead.
Oh,
And I'm going to say the Dead just because of what they did was so unusual and so different than any other rock and roll band. They built this empire on the music and the fans together. I just interviewed their publicist, Dennis McNallen. He said, usually when you're a publicist for a band, they're looking to get attention. These guys didn't want it. They actually went about it a whole different way. And then by allowing recordings and changing up the set list every night, it just built the fan base up more and more. Because if you missed one show, you would regret it because they would change the set list up. If you did go to one show, you're going to want to go to the next one because it's not going to be the same as last night. And then also it's just advertising the band when you're exchanging tapes. So I thought that was fascinating. But the Beatles really just set the standard.
Yeah.
Who did I? At second, I had Zeppelin because from a heavy metal or hard rock standpoint, they are the Beatles of hard rock and metal. Although they did so many different kinds, so many styles of music, but still Zeppelin was like the template for what every rock and roll band would be after that. Yeah, the Stones, just for longevity, but also the body of work. Now, they've had a lot of albums where there's some duds in there, but overall, that run that they had in the late 60s to mid 70s, I mean, it's unreal what they pulled off, and those songs are timeless. And yeah, they also set the standard because at one time they were considered old in the mid 70s when they hit their 30s, and they've set the standard. They've basically said it's okay to rock until you're 80. Maybe they'll still be here when they're 90. I don't know. Pink Floyd, to me, Dark Side of the Moon is the greatest rock and roll album of all time because it relates to everybody and the music is brilliant and their body of work. And that's an example of a band name becoming bigger than the band members themselves. Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out the Booked on Rock Podcast. If you've just found the podcast, welcome. If you've been listening, thank you so much for your support. And make sure you tell a friend, a family member, share on social media, and let people know about Booked on Rock. And if you do like the podcast, make sure you subscribe, give a 5-star review wherever you listen to the Booked on Rock Podcast. We're on Amazon, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, and on YouTube Music. You can check out the full episodes on video, along with video highlights from episodes on the Booked on Rock YouTube channel. Find it at Booked on Rock. Thanks again for listening. Now back to the show. How about top 5 greatest albums of all time? I named number 1, which is Dark Side of the Moon. That's my number 1.
I tried and I couldn't decide.
Back in Black, AC/DC.
Yes.
If you look at some of the biggest selling albums of all time, Eagles, Hotel California.
I just bought it as a vinyl.
Cool.
2 or 3 weeks ago from a secondhand shop. I just, I didn't know. I was amazed that I found it. It's the original first print, and it was in great condition, and it was cheap. I don't know if Eagles are not recognized enough here in the Nordics. I don't know, but it is still a great album after all these years.
Zeppelin 1, Zeppelin 2, Zeppelin 4, those 3 right there are huge. We can go on all day.
Yeah, we can.
It is a hard question. It is a hard question.
It is so hard.
I mean, personally, for me, I love Van Halen. Van Halen 1, the debut album.
1984 is awesome.
This is my personal favorite album by the band.
And I have it. I also have it as a vinyl. It was my father's, my late father's.
Cool.
So I am cherishing it. I'm a metalhead, so there's,
Well, yeah. What about Metallica?
well, yes and no. Metallica, yes and no. They have, but I've heard them all so many times. They are repeatedly played in radio, and I think I've heard them a bit too much.
Okay, because I was going to say Master of Puppets is.
It is good, but because I'm born in the mid '80s, I wasn't a metalhead at that time. I first found, I think it was Limp Bizkit's Significant Other, and I think no, the first Limp Bizkit album. What's it called? $3 Bill, y'all, and
Right.
That was it. And then
The cover of Faith by George Michael on there.
I think that was the one that lured me in. I was listening to it. What's this? This is fun. This is fun. And after that, System of a Down. There's so many bands in the '90s.
Korn.
I definitely Korn. One of the first CDs that I bought was Korn's "Follow the Leader." So I don't know if it's in your questions, but I am thinking about the next one, and it should be Heavy Metal Almanac. This is what
cool.
I think. This was kind of easy to find all the bands, all the stories, because I knew 90% of the songs that were mentioned. I knew 90% of the bands, and if I didn't know, I used just Spotify this song. Oh, well, this is rock and roll enough for the book. And I think I know heavy metal also. And I think it will be a great step next. And the metalheads are, a tight group. If something is heavy metal, it's ours. So there's a possibility that someone buys the book also.
You could have a series, really, if these do well. You could do all sorts of genres. That would be cool. Metal.
Yeah, why not?
Metal's a great idea. Plus, like I say, it's right down your strike zone. Andrew Craneman is the author of the Rock and Roll Almanac, a day-by-day journey through 70 years of legendary music history. June 1st, 1987, an important day in grunge history. Soundgarden released their first single, Hunted Down, on Sub Pop Records, the official arrival of the Seattle scene's soon-to-be rulers. I always have to remember that the history of grunge goes pretty far back, 1987. That's during the hairband era. How about a cool Def Leppard entry, June 6th, 1979, Def Leppard's career-changing gig takes place not in a stadium, but at a Sheffield workingmen's club. Playing Crook's Workingmen's Club, the young rockers get their first major press when UK music magazine Sounds reviews the show. The buzz from the article leads to a recording contract with Phonogram Records, setting Def Leppard on the path to rock superstardom. I like that one because I'm a huge Def Leppard fan, so I picked that one out. They opened for AC/DC early on. Here in the States, in the U.S.
So many stories that someone has opened for someone else, and then they became too big. Who was it that had some...
Van Halen opened for Black Sabbath, blew him off the stage.
Yeah.
There are stories of unusual opening acts, like the Beastie Boys opening for Madonna.
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix opening for the Monkees.
Yes, definitely.
Is there a year that really stood out to you in the book that you had to really pare down? There was a lot happening.
1977 is one of those that stands out. Punk was exploding, disco was peaking, and the classic rock giants like Zeppelin and Pink Floyd was still in full swing. And it's a year where you can find a Ramones gig and the Bee Gees hit and the Fleetwood Mac drama all in the same week. So the contrast is so big.
You're right. And FM rock radio was really starting to take off.
Yeah.
How about specific decade? Was the 70s the most important or noteworthy?
I think it was the richest. It had everything. That there's arena rock, there's punk, glam rock, metal, progressive rock, and artists were pushing boundaries. The 90s still surprised me also, because there's more depth to it than just the grunge. There's Britpop, alternative rock, industrial, even early new metal, and it's all happening at once, bubbling under.
Yeah, there are a lot of good bands that are forgotten. In fact, I just read a book on Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill, which is a phenomenal album.
Great album, definitely.
That's 30.
Yeah. How old was she? She was like 17.
21.
No.
So she was 17. She was in her late teens when she left Canada and came to LA to change her image, change her career. She put out 2 dance pop albums in Canada that were popular. She was just called Alanis. She went with her full name, signed with a new manager, didn't have a record deal. They were shopping around for a producer. They found Glenn Ballard. They hit it off immediately. Within 30 minutes, wrote a song, started writing a song a day, cranking songs out. And we had Jagged Little Pill, which has 6 singles on that album. The 90s was a decade of female rockers really coming forward, and Tori Amos,
No Doubt, with
Gwen Stefani. No Doubt. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that happened in the 90s that there's a book. I mean, you could literally just do books on decades too. I mean, you could expand that. Yeah. How about, let's stick with June a little bit more. June 10, 1967, California hosts what might be the very first rock festival, the Magic Mountain Music Festival. June 10, 1967. 15,000 fans, Jefferson Airplane, The Doors, and the Byrds making history. A week later, though, it's completely overshadowed by the 200,000-strong Monterey Pop Festival. Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and The Who stole that show. That's really interesting. So the Magic Mountain Music Festival kind of lost in rock history. It's an event that was important.
How about Uriah Heep kicks their heavy metal journey with the release of the debut album? Very heavy, very humble. I don't know how. That's a good album also.
Oh, yeah. So I was going to ask if and I just only recently got into them because I covered the book in an episode. Phenomenal band.
Yeah, I had a cassette when I was young of Uriah Heep. But there was this Rolling Stone critic who declared that she'll commit suicide if the band ever makes it.
Yep.
Spoiler, they did, and she did not.
Those bands, the progressive rock bands, yes, early Genesis, they never got the credit they deserved by critics. What day was that in the month of June?
It was the 13th.
13th of June, yeah. There it is, yeah. I love the title. Very heavy, very humble.
Yeah. So I think one of the reasons that I cannot name any, specific albums that, that are the best or the greatest are because I was introduced and reintroduced to a lot of albums and a lot of great songs when I did the manuscript, when I was mining the data for this. The cover says that there's 400 plus albums, and that's because there's 366 days, even for the leap year, and there's an album for every day, but there were so many albums that were monumental or I think really good that I couldn't put up there as an album released on that day. So they are mentioned in the little stories.
Yeah, otherwise the book would have gone on forever. I mean, it's already how many pages?
407, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
So you had to pare it down. This is cool, though. Also on June 13, I just mentioned Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill. That was the day, June 13, 95. But also, June 13, 1975, talk about the 70s. 70s was the era of live albums. Peter Frampton takes the stage at San Francisco's legendary Winterland Ballroom for the first of 2 nights that would change his career forever. Recordings from these shows, along with others, make up Frampton Comes Alive, the double live album that catapults him from respected musician to global superstar. That's got Show Me the Way, Baby I Love Your Way, Do You Feel Like We Do. The album dominates the charts, spending 10 non-consecutive weeks at number 1, becoming the best-selling album of 1976. Decades later, it still holds its place among the greatest live albums of all time. The Booked on Rock podcast will be back after this.
Bam! The future of rock and roll.
Find the Booked on Rock website at bookedonrock.com. There you can find all the back episodes of the show, the latest episode in video and audio, plus a video highlight and a link to our YouTube channel. Links to all of the platforms where you can listen to the podcast, plus all the social media platforms. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. Also, check out the Booked on Rock blog, find your local independent bookstore, find out all the latest hot rock book releases, and before you go, check out the Booked on Rock online store. Pick up some Booked on Rock merch. It's all at bookedonrock.com. Let's get to the John Wayne Gacy one. This is bizarre. This is so bizarre. June 23rd, 1965. All right. You ready for this, folks? Here we go. The Kinks played a show organized by John Wayne Gacy, the serial killer who dressed up like a clown and had bodies buried underneath his house. How about that, folks? Don't blame the Kinks. They had no idea. This is going way back. What did I say? June 23rd, 1965. Yeah, in what is now one of the creepiest footnotes in rock history, the Kinks unknowingly play a show in Springfield, Illinois, organized by none other than John Wayne Gacy, a man who would later be unmasked as one of America's most notorious serial killers. Gacy, known as the Killer Clown, was still years away from his horrifying crimes. But the fact that he once promoted rock shows before becoming a monster is pure nightmare fuel. Never knew that until reading this book.
You do learn every day something. And I think, as you said about the book being you being able to just take it off the shelf or from the coffee table, the user interface is, it's unbeatable. It never runs out of battery, but you can just read a snippet here and a bit there and another here, then put it back. And, it can stay there for a week or two or a month, and you can still go back to it.
Sure.
I think this will stand the test of time because most of the golden age of the rock and roll is already behind us. Sadly, but honestly.
That's why these books are so important, though.
Of course, yes.
I say this is story time. This is the time to put it all together and make sure that people are aware of this in generations to come. The Springfield show was organized by future serial killer John Wayne Gacy. He was then vice president of the local JC's chapter. This is according to a search online here. In 2000, a band member recounted Gacy invited the Kinks to his home, a story dismissed by their band biographers. So whether that's true or not, who knows? Hey, guys, come on over. I'll be dressed in clown makeup, and we can go over the plans for your upcoming concert. That is absolutely surreal, bizarre. And that's just one. I didn't read the whole book. I just thumbed through the month of June and some other months. So who knows what else is in here, man?
There is other killers. There is someone who was pretending to be some leader of some other band. I really don't remember all
well, I mean,
these.
there's the well-known ones.
It was the band Shana or something, and he was performing.
I think you're talking about Elmer Edward Solly, convicted of manslaughter in 1970, pretended to be Sha Na Na guitarist Vinnie Taylor. So you have that in the book?
Yeah, and he had a show or something going on, and I think he was making some money of it, not just pretending to be someone else, but making money from it. And they gladly someone found out.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, but there's also, okay, so we have many funny stories, many stupid stories, but there are also some tragic stories in there, starting from the past. Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper were in the airplane just before Buddy Holly, made it out in the big shows, and they died. Everybody, I think most of the people know about, I hit a blackout. What's the band? Sweet Home Alabama.
Lynyrd Skynyrd. Yeah, that's October of 70.
And the airplane accident. Of course, there are people that have been shot on the stage, like Dimebag Darrell. That's, I think, more of it in the sometime upcoming Heavy Metal Almanac. One of which I think I have to mention, as I am here in Finland and finished, the Hanoi Rocks drummer Razzle, who was killed in a car accident. Vince Neil was driving the car after some show, and I don't know what happened, but they ended up in a car wreck, and Razzle died. And that was the end of Hanoi Rocks, kind of, because they couldn't just go on.
Well, we'll finish with, I guess, July 4th coming up. So let's do some 4th of July ones, and we'll wrap this up. July 4, 1964. Let's see. The Stones get a taste of the critics' wrath, appearing as panelists on the BBC's Jukebox Jury. Mick Keith and the gang weigh in on the latest records. Their performance, less than polished. The Daily Sketch skewers them in a scathing review, calling them gum-chewing, ill-mannered, ill-humored, illiberal, and illogical jurors. Translation, exactly what the kids love about them. July 4, 1969, Grand Funk Railroad rocks the Atlanta Pop Festival, shirtless. Still a fledgling band at the time. Grand Funk wins over a massive crowd at the festival. Mark Farner, lead singer, ditches his shirt mid-set because it was so hot out, much to the delight of the audience. Okay, we got one here. Oh, the first ever public gig for The Clash, July 4, 1976. They opened for the Sex Pistols at the Black Swan in Sheffield. Jeremy Spencer of Fleetwood Mac is a July 4 birthday. Let's see, the Animals. Dave Rowberry, born in 1940, July 4. Oh, this is a good one. July 4, 1985, Dire Straits begin a record-breaking Wembley run, kicking off 14 consecutive nights at Wembley Arena. 14. They delivered a marathon performance to packed crowds each night on day 10, took a little detour across the parking lot to Wembley Stadium for Live Aid, where they play an afternoon set before returning for their scheduled evening show. Double duty never looked so smooth. Not mentioned, people talk about Phil Collins, how he played in Philadelphia and London, and that was a lot of work for him. But still, Dire Straits, man, they were killing it that summer, man. That was huge, that album.
Let me ask you a question. If you had a time machine, which gig you would like to go and see?
Oh boy! Oh, Woodstock.
Thinking about it.
No,
talking
hands
about
down.
Questions.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna say Woodstock, 1969, hands down. And I've been to that site in Bethel, New York, and it was hair raising just to be standing on that field. It really was cool, and they have a museum and everything. But I would say 1, Woodstock, 2 would be Live Aid, and I have friends who were there. And I guess if I'm going to come up with a third one, I would say I'll throw in Woodstock 94. That would have been cool.
Yeah, why not?
And I could have. Yes. I mean, I was certainly of age to go at that time. I just didn't go. Not 99 Woodstock. No, thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know if I come back alive. Rock and Roll Almanac, a day-by-day journey through 70 years of legendary music history. It's out now. You can find it wherever books are sold. You can find it at your nearest bookstore. Go to bookedonrock.com to find your nearest independent bookstore. Where can people find you online, Andrew Craneman?
Well, I think they can find the Rock and Roll Almanac from Facebook and Instagram and from X. I originally thought that I didn't have to be on social media because I'm not a big fan of those. But as the nowadays is what it is, you can find them there. And if you want to contact straight with me, I'm on the new, I think it's new, the Blue Sky app, if you're familiar with it.
I just jumped onto Blue Sky as well. I have 2 followers on Blue Sky right now. I've got some work to do.
You'll have 3 in a minute.
Okay, we're going to have 3. No, it's true. I wouldn't have social media if not for the show. In fact, even then, though, I'm like, God, I feel like I'm annoying people because I'm posting stuff almost every other day, but it's a necessary thing. You got to get the word out. So there you have it. But I'm not one of those, I'm not into it. And I'm suspecting you're not either, where you just post stuff like, hey, today I was at the store today, and boy, check out the prices on meat in the meat aisle today. This is fascinating. Anyway, guys, just want to let you know, I can't do that. No, but listen, man, there are influencers that do that stuff, and God bless them, man. They're making.
I hope they're happy. I truly hope they're happy now, and I truly hope they're happy after 2 or 3 decades. You know, when they think back, what they have done.
Hey, I just saw on Netflix they had a documentary on this guy, the Liver King. Do you know about this guy?
No.
Okay, I didn't know either.
I've seen pictures. Yes,
jacked out of his mind, and everybody like Joe Rogan was like, he's on roids, no doubt, and he kept saying, no, I don't do steroids. I just eat raw. You know, I eat liver. I eat the liver of a cow. I eat I just eat nothing but natural food like a caveman, and he finally got caught, and he admits it in the Netflix documentary. But again, there's an example of a guy who's posting, and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm out in the woods today, and I'm gonna eat the testicles of a bear." It's like, okay, that's great, man. Good for you. God bless you. Yeah. God bless you. All right. Definitely. Andrew, thanks, man. This was great. Thanks so much for coming on. When you have that next book out on the almanac on what? On metal history? Will that
I think Heavy Metal Almanac should be. I can't say.
It's going to take a while.
It will take a while. Perhaps I'm happy if it's out next summer. But once I thought that perhaps rap music is really big also, and it's getting bigger and bigger now as we speak. But I don't understand anything of it. I don't know the names. I don't know the songs. Someone else has to do it. I don't know. It could be a bestseller, but sorry, I can't. I'm a rock and roll guy.
You're a rock and roller. Well, You're welcome back here. As soon as it comes out, we'll get the word out and have some fun talking about that one. Andrew, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
That's it. It's in the books.